Jason Whitlock was saying that your mess is because of some traditional African traditions and African religions. I said, Jason, I'll talk to you in real person. You heard it from a pastor here in Dallas. You're trying to shift your problems always to the Africans. We go to church more than you guys do. Remember, we were colonized. We were invaded first, and then we were colonized. So we lived under British occupation. What do you think the British were doing? Worshipping gods with us? We lived under British occupation, so of course they brought churches to us. They brought Christianity to us. So we wouldn't have been the reason why you have a Jay-Z. You have a Jay-Z because that's a culture you've created. Take some accountability for your own. Don't make it about us. But that's very easy and very convenient to say that, oh, this happened in Africa, so all of a sudden, let's put all this YN culture on some African religious beliefs, where these Africans don't even believe that. Africans have moved on from traditional religions for decades. I was baptized at 3 years old in a Presbyterian church that still exists to this very day in my small town of Oboko. So for people with big platforms like Jason Whitlock to sit on the internet and say that to a big audience, 30,000 people were watching, that's 30,000 Black Americans that believe now that YN culture is okay because it came from Africa and they are possessed by some demons. And there's no African to push back. But my YouTube channel is here to push back on these same narratives because a lot of people believe these things when it goes out in the mainstream, and that's not true. We go to church religiously every Sunday. Our children go to Catholic schools. There's Catholic missionaries, Catholic schools all over the place in Africa. We go to church like crazy. There are African women that are in church even on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. It's so much in Ghana that people even like, geez, like, are you going to go work? We do more church than we work. That's why we dusted up over there when it comes to economics. So for Jason Whitlock to look at this and say that this culture came from, this YN culture came from African traditional and witchcraft. I was like, man, what? Your hip hop culture is something you created. So you have to take responsibility for creating that culture and the outcomes that came with that culture. Don't blame it on other people. So you mean to tell me that you guys have nothing that you did wrong? That all of a sudden economics, oh, it's a white man's fault. Oh, okay, but these Black immigrants, they got some benefits to get a head start. Oh, okay, now gang culture and shooting up places. Oh, it's the African problem. Oh, it came from some witchcraft from Africa. Witchcraft doesn't cross the Atlantic Ocean, man. That's a lie. That's a lie, man. You have to look right in the mirror and say, man, this thing is going off track. How do we correct it? And not to create some equivalency with some dudes in a third world country minding their damn business. You know, these guys are minding their business, going to church, chilling out there in Africa. You're over here blaming them for your culture that you've been proud of. You guys have always been saying you are the culture and hip hop and hip hop and hip hop and hip hop. So this is something you've created. If you've created that culture and if you enjoy the music and the success that came with it, why are you shifting that degenerate part onto Africans?
This is why your work has been so important. I've been a critic of hip hop as long as you have been explaining hip hop. I just by instinct, and because I loved hip hop, but I was able to recognize like, hey man, this is a negative influence and force on our culture, and so I was critical of it. But you have spent, I felt like it was like 30 years trying to tell people, like, hey man, this hip hop culture that we keep it's taking us straight to hell. Yeah, that appear. Yeah, I'm like,
Switch doctor.
Yeah, where did it come from?
That's a Shineman. Shineman. That's the hair of a Shineman. Yeah.
Hey, spell Shyman. So we want to look that up.
Shaman. He's basically a male witch.
A sh-
And Jay-Z is tied into Maria Abramovich, so she's queen witch of the celebrities. He just did a whole video with her casting a spell over him, even in the video. So witchcraft in this stuff is so prevalent. But the men that have their hair, they think, folks, they think I'm just being extra, oh, I can wear my hair long and all that. But what the devil used, he used fatherlessness to open the door for all of these weird hairdos. Because when we were young, Saturday was haircut day. Like you just knew you wake up Saturday, you go get your hair cut, that was it. And if you fussed about it, your daddy would cut your hair himself. And you don't want that to happen. So you just go, that was what it was. But we thought we were just following some kind of cultural thing, but it's biblical. The Bible tells us, 1 Corinthians 11:14, doth not nature teach us that a man have long hair? If a man has long hair, it's a shame unto him. That's the way God, and the reason it says that, and I know folks get offended and get upset,
People.
powers over there are way more potent than the ones over here. Yeah, so that picture is showing you what our guys look like now. These are football players and artists, Snoop and all that. But if you look at this is where it came from. Those are men who fashioned their hair to look like the animals or the entities that they worship. So they worship actual beings or animals spiritually. They worship them as gods, and then they fashion their hair just like them. So all of those hairstyles you see are in Africa right now, and they're over here. It wasn't intentional. Nobody here was looking to Africa for a hairstyle. They just started following suit with what they saw in the hip hop artists, what they saw on TV. All the athletes now, they're just watching hip hop artists. And that's how that curse has spread to.
So you heard that. This guy believes that all of us are walking around Africa with that hairstyle, even though I grew up never seeing it. Lived 18 years of my life over there, never seen it. I go back to Africa 2-3 times a year, don't see it. I actually start to see more of this mainstream in the cities because they are trying to copy Black American culture when they do this stuff. And the witchcraft and the traditions that he's trying to imply, that the pastor is making this sound like this is what Africa is. This is the current case or the current situation of today's Africa. And this is not true. While they were going through slavery, we were going through colonization for the most part. We're being dominated by the proliferation of Christianity all across sub-Saharan Africa. Zambia declares itself as a whole Christian nation. Zambia is one of the few countries that constitutionally is a Christian nation. We go to church religiously. We cut our hairs. We don't follow this whole traditional thing. Now, if you go deep into the villages, and if you go deep into traditional sects, you will have small pockets. But the last time Ghana did the census, there was less than 2% of the Ghanaian population that practiced traditional religion. We know it exists. We believe that the power is potent, but we don't live our lives in Africa mirroring traditional religion. Actually, we are heavily Christians to a fault. So this is not true. But because they are saying this to a Black audience that hasn't done the research, Jason Whitlock, who I love and I listen to a lot, this is why I caught this, because I was watching this live stream. I was there live. I realized that this kind of misinformation is also part of the reason why this community is not accountable for anything. That it's very easy to shift your problems on other people, and these other people, the Africans, are not on the internet to defend themselves. I didn't learn about God and Jesus in America. My wife didn't learn about God and Jesus in America. Sunday was church service. From 3 years old that I got baptized, Sunday was church service for every person in my town. My town, Oboko, where I come from, is almost 99% Christian. 99% Christian. There's almost 10 or 15 churches in a town of 5,000 people. So these people are heavily misinformed because they are looking for answers to their ills. And because Africans, we're not on the internet to really teach these things, they believe that all of us are walking out, living in huts, and believing that these, these traditional things is what takes over our countries. And that's not true, man. This is a big lie. And like I said, I love Jason Whitlock. I wish that one day he'll see this video. I'll clip it out. And I wish he sees this video. And this guy is a pastor in Dallas. I can meet him in real person and talk to him and tell him that whoever told him this thing is a lie. He needs to stop teaching this stuff. It's not true. And Jason admits in this live stream that he's never been to Africa. So if you've not been to Africa, you're not going to understand these dynamics. And you're lying to, I don't think they are deliberately lying to an audience. I think they are shifting from being responsible or taking responsibility and accountability for the deteriorating state of their communities. And who is always the boogeyman? Africa. They always have to put it back to us. African cultures did not get passed on into Black America. Initially it was. But after years and years of living in North America, 400 years later, a lot of that is lost. Language was lost, culture was lost. The culture that God created is culture that you created for yourselves. So when you're celebrating the good aspects of that culture, and you don't give us any credit for that good aspect of the culture, like your music, right? Why are you sending us the bad aspect of it and blaming us for it? And when I come here and I push back on things like this, you're quick to say, oh no, they hate us. For these two gentlemen to understand that they are wrong, they have to travel to Africa. And then when they come back from Africa, they will understand why our kids are so well behaved. Okay? They will also understand why we take religion seriously and why we go to church. They'll also understand why we believe in God and Jesus Christ, and the Muslim communities, why they believe in Allah, and how religion forms the basis of who we are today as today's Africans. This is not Africa of the 1500s. We're just as exposed, we are just as connected to the internet, we are just as heavily researched, we have institutions of higher education, we have degrees. A lot of us earn our degrees on the continent of Africa before we even come here. So the lack of information about our people is what is creating this mindset that we come here in rags and we have nothing and we didn't build a foundation before we got here. And this is not true. None of these guys will even pass most of our high school exams. If you take a WIAC exam, a lot of these guys won't pass it. But yet we come here and we pass SATs. From the same African education system that the Western society has made people think that it's so not good. But then how is it producing such smart people if it's so bad? Right? It's just not true, man. So I wanted to finish off with this because I really, really love Jason Whitlock. I watch his content a lot. I think this is one of those things where he's being given bad advice. and that is only because for the fact that these two gentlemen are trying to find answers to the YN culture, the black fatigue and all these things that are going on, the gang violence, the murders, the jail, all that stuff. And they're trying to figure out how has it gotten so bad. And I understand them. It's okay to try to find solutions to it. But you will never find any solution if you keep pointing the fingers at other people.